So I've been experimenting with building sets. This is a thing I'm going to have to figure out for this project, and I'm not entirely sure how I want to approach it. So I tried some things that I don't think worked, but I learned some stuff from it, and that's great. So when I first started working on actually building sets, I went out and I spent a lot of time watching videos of model builders, like war game type stuff, building like train and things. This is something I've done a little bit in the past. I'm not particularly good at it, but watching them do it, and they do amazing work. It can be quite beautiful, and they build a style of terrain that you could definitely use for a set in a thing like this. And so I sat down and I sort of tried to build some pieces like that. This one is an example. The painting is rather crude because by the time I got to the painting, I knew I wasn't going to use it. And so I was just finishing it for the sake of finishing. But, it's a thing. It's a chunk of wall with a little wire and some sort of weird grill. You could use this. It's not what I want. And so I came to that realization as I was working. The thing that I realized that this style of set building does, that is not what I want, is that they're using materials, often easily recognizable materials. A lot of these scratch builders are building out of plastic junk, bits of bottles, deodorant sticks, whatever, little beads and things. And that's really cool. But what they do with them is they take that stuff and they hide its original identity. So you're going to build a model that's made of very familiar objects, but in context, those objects are no longer familiar. Like you glued them onto something, often layers of things with like little greebles on them, painted them, and so that you can no longer see what the original material was. And that's not what I want. What I want is I want the original material to be obvious. I want the scale to be strange. So like the puppets are clearly at a different scale than the things around them. I think that's an effect that I want to emphasize. You get that a little bit in things like the wargame terrain, because it's not like a special effects set for like a Hollywood movie where you'd be really, you could, with the right photography, you can make it not obvious that it's miniature, right? It can look like a full-size building or whatever. With the wargame sets, sort of by design, they're not intended to look like a full-scale object. They're intended to look like miniatures, and they do. They're little cartoons of a building, and so that part's great, like that sort of disjointed scale, and that's what I want. But the identity of the materials is important to me. I want the texture of the real objects. Some stuff will be painted and disguised. That's sort of inevitable. And there's going to be places where I'm going to focus on disorientation, right? And that's a place where a model like this might actually be useful, because this textured gray paint, it looks a lot like cement, right? And there might be a place where I want, the puppets to appear like they're in, a place that could actually be like a brutalist cement walls, basement or something. But then include out of scale bits and pieces like, a weird walnut, or, a bit of broken snail shell, right? And these are the kinds of details that I want to be sort of first-class citizens of the visual impact of the thing I'm building. So we'll see. We'll see if I can actually pull that off. But that's how I'm thinking about sets right now. So once I realized that was how I wanted to produce sets, I started thinking about how to make sort of backdrops and environments that have this weird scale of like they're clearly small and made of stuff that's not of the same size that the puppets would be if they were full-size people. Also, I got really interested in stripes. we'll see. That will likely appear in the thing. So I started making stuff like this, it's different. So it's, it has this texture that is sort of more painterly, I guess. Like, it's cruder, right? There's just sort of ink splashed over it, and it's got a little bit of 3D texture because of the strips layered on. And I find that interesting because it's sort of ambiguous what it is. Like, when you photograph it, it's not clear exactly what it is. Like, you can see that it's paint on some sort of surface, but it's not like you're no longer certain what the surface is or really what scale it's at. Like, you could do that at room scale, or it could be a miniature. It's not always clear. And then when you include sets, things like this, a little bouquet of crow feathers, those sorts of details, for me at least, continue to drive that ambiguity. Like, the crow feathers are, it would be very strange if they were large. Like, they're clearly a small object. But in the context of other things, where it would be sort of strange if they were small, there's sort of a pleasant ambiguity for me. And so I think this is going to work as a way of thinking about set building. And I need to, learn how to do this well, just by practicing building sets, which I'm going to be doing. But I think this approach to it is going to work for the visuals I want, and so I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be cool. So that's that for this video. I've been doing a bunch of work in addition to thinking about this aesthetic stuff. A bunch of work on the technical aspects of photographing sets, and there'll be a video on that relatively shortly. It's led to me doing all sorts of stuff I wasn't expecting to do, like put cement sealant in my basement, and building stuff into the rafters. There's been a lot of stuff to figure out, and I'll talk about that in a more technical video, and hopefully have some more test photography of what I think the environments might look like and how I might treat them in terms of post-processing coming up. So that's pretty exciting, starting to see something that feels more like a real environment. So cool. I will see you in the next video.